Hello, everyone. OG Rose here. Today we're going to be talking about a paper called Self-Delusion, the Toward-ness of Evidence, and the Paradox of Judgment. And the main idea of the paper is a distinction between assessment and judgment. You could say that judgment is to say you are a liar, while assessment is to say you lied. Judgment defines a person by something they did or by a characteristic, while assessment is to assess something that the person did, but not to, peg their identity to it. It's something we can do to other people and also something we can do to ourselves. And the problem with judgment is that once I say you are a liar, then I'm also start building a case for why you are a liar. And I sort of kind of transform the meaning of what you do to fit that box. And then get into confirmation bias, overconfidence effect, all these psychological tricks that can be at play, where if I just assess and said you lied, I'm containing the event to a single instant, and so you don't get into all that other psychological stuff. And problematically, you can do this to yourself too if you say I am bad at math as opposed to I did bad on that test. Well, now you've defined yourself within a box, and you start finding evidence for why you're bad at math. You've created a what you could call a kind of a toward-ness to things in life that are toward your case. We are always kind of looking for evidence of what we think, what we believe, and so on. We can't help it. We're humans. We're pattern creators and finders. It's part of us, but problematically, when we look at something that is evidence to us, we kind of forget that it's us that projects the evidence onto the thing. Phenomenon do not wear cases on their faces. In the same way, Cardinal Newman once said that words don't wear their meanings. We have to determine them. But the experience of a written text is that the words do wear the meaning. That is kind of self-evident. Likewise, when we make phenomenon evidence toward a case, we think it's self-evident that the phenomenon is in fact evidence toward that case. And we kind of forget that other people may not see the same thing. And in fact, if they don't see what we see, if they don't see the phenomenon as evidence toward the case we consider it toward, then we think they're crazy, or maybe clueless, or they're not paying attention. We become very judgmental. So it's very important for us to remember that when we see things as evidence, it's because of cases that are in us, not out in the world objectively. And we tend to make this mistake when we're judgmental as opposed to assessing, because that's when we create cases. And the paradox of judgment is precisely that when you judge, you think you're seeing something clearly, but precisely because you create these boxes and these, you make things evidence towards certain cases, you actually can make yourself less discerning. The act of judgment, which is supposed to help you see clearly, ends up making you see poorly. Where it's true that, you can't go through life not making assessments. You have to make decisions. But if you're try to err on the side of assessment more than judgment, the likelihood that you make good assessments and discern well go up because you don't define things by an attribute or a characteristic or a single incident. You don't define things ontologically that way. You keep it contained, and you make your case something that builds out of instances as opposed to universalities or generalities. Now, of course, people can say you are a liar, and by that meant you lied. The phrases can be used interchangeably. You have to pay attention to how the person is using it, as you have to pay attention to yourself and how you do it. Because if you're not careful, you can also, like I was saying, make a case against yourself and become self-deluded about yourself, and you're going to think that you're just facing the truth and that you're being discerning. But of course, the paradox of judgment is when you think you're being discerning about yourself, when you're judging yourself, you're actually becoming more blind to yourself. You're becoming more self-deluded. So anyway, that's Self-Delusion, the Toward-ness of Evidence, and the Paradox of Judgment by O.G. Rose. If you're interested, there will be a link to the full paper. And try not to judge. Try to stick to assessment. And thank you for your time. Bye.